Over to the third speaker, Carole. So, Carole is professor and chair of the Department of Anthropology at the University of Colorado, USA, and a scholar of contemporary Tibet and the Himalayas. She's author of books Arrested Histories, Tibet, the CIA, and Memories of a Forgotten War, 2010, co-editor of Imperial Formations, 2007, and Ethnographies of U.S. Empire, 2018, and editor of Writing Anthropology, Essays on Craft and Commitment 2020. She is currently co-editing the Tibet Reader, a volume on ethics and ethnography, and finishing another book on theoretical storytelling. Carole.
Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to be here in such a crowded room as well and have so many people here for this talk. I've come to you from the University of Colorado in USA. I'm here just for 10 days, and I'm so pleased that I was able to be here for this event. I want to start by saying that this is not just a matter of geopolitics, it's not just a matter of religious history, it's a matter of respect. Right? We're talking about the Dalai Lama. And for some people, that means that this is actually a really important topic. It's a topic that we need to make sure we get right. And to even talk about it can be somewhat difficult and even a little dangerous or risky. We are here, myself as a scholar and as a non-Tibetan scholar, all of you in the room, I think not just because you're curious, perhaps, but because you realize that there are claims out there in the world that the Dalai Lama is not the one to decide who his next reincarnation is. We've just heard from two of my colleagues, and I hope I'm so pleased to be here as a scholar also and to say, like, we have responsibilities as scholars. And one of them is, as Martin and Darig have just done, to provide historic and political context, right, for things that have happened in the past, for things that are happening now. I want to talk about historic and political context of the contemporary time, of this world right now. And so I think it's important to do that by starting by saying the Dalai Lama is the one who gets to decide, like, just period, right? Full stop. The political moment that we're in right now, as the person who is an office holder of an institution, it's his decision. And that is very clear. He will share more with us next year. He has said that when he turns 90, that he will make some sort of statement on his reincarnation. At some point in that year, it might not be on July 6th on the very day, but at some point, there will be more from him. Our job as scholars, also for those of you who are, whether you're a community member, an activist, a journalist, right, is to share facts and truth, empirical data, research, analysis, what it is we've signed up to do as scholars, right, to think about the world and to share that knowledge with you. Ganden Podrang, right, starting in 1642, and His Holiness through the Chutsi system, right, ruling Tibet for so long, for a much longer duration than any of the Chinese empires that have laid claim to Tibet. In 2011, His Holiness steps down, although here we have him ascending. Let's just pause for a minute, think of, all of his times as leader, religious and political. So steps down, eventually here another young His Holiness. In 2011, as political leader, we now have a democratically elected Sikyong, right, for the Tibetan community in exile, a plan for governance, a new sort of governance when Tibet is once again ruled by Tibetans. But for the Tibetan community, and as does not need to be said here, but I'm going to say it out loud, His Holiness is not just a religious leader, is not just a political leader, is the leader, right? And is a person in whom there is faith, right? There is devotion. This is the one on which your being, your life, your way of being in the world, of understanding the world in this moment rests. And I can tell you that as a scholar of Tibet, and I've been doing this since 1989, so for quite some time now, every single thing I write, regardless of what the topic is, whether it's about migration, whether it's about Chushigandru, whether it's about the Miss Tibet beauty pageant, it is in relationship to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It is about people's relationships to His Holiness. And that is so important, right? His Holiness has become a world leader and a figure of peace and persistence for so many people. but his position in the community is pretty much unparalleled. Other Dalai Lamas haven't been asked to be on the global stage, have not been asked to lead the Tibetan community in the way that he has. And I think acknowledging all of this, the ways that he is both a reincarnation, and Martin, I loved how you shared the idea of people who knew not just the 13th Dalai Lama and then the 14th Dalai Lama, right, in their lifetimes knew both, but of gods and deities, right, who have known all of the Dalai Lamas and have had relationships with every one of them. So here, I just wanted to share, right, some of the ideas of what does it mean to be approaching even the discussion of the reincarnation, right, of someone who is so beloved and is so very important, and to acknowledge that difficulty. Because that involves fear. And when I look at this photograph, right, of all that wasn't known then, this photograph from 1954, right, of His Holiness, of the Dalai Lama, and also the Panchen Lama meeting here, right, with Mao Zedong, and perhaps still holding on to some hope of maybe what could happen. That did not, right? Things ended up going very wrong. And so here's where I think it's important, analytically, to recognize China as empire. Right, so the relationship that the Chinese government has with the Tibetan people is a colonial one and an imperial one. And that means it's a relationship of domination and of dispossession. Right? Tibet is under the rule of the People's Republic of China. Right? And to be dispossessed means to have things taken away from you, your religion, your land, nomadic practices, your language. Your leaders, whether it was chieftains, primpos, whether it was gipos, whether it's, tulkus and rinpoches. And the country then this is actually the image of one of my books. This is the cover image to try and show, like, what does empire look like? What does imperialism look like? Right, and so for me, this just feels like a very stark image, right, of Chinese soldiers, right, in front of the Patala. Thinking about empire, though, means thinking about what's going on in the present. What does it mean to live, right, under empire? What is the feel of being colonized? This is a photo from 2011 that was originally shared by Wusser on Facebook. And then I'm going to move around a little bit. I want to come now to a bunch of things that are happening simultaneously. Right? So there's a lot of, it's almost like the Blitz, right? Happening all at once. How do we tend to everything that's going on? 2007 in July, right? We get Article 5, Measures on the Management of the Reincarnation of Living Buddhas in Tibetan Buddhism. And this is from ICT that was used by the U.S. Congress. Right? The Chinese Communist Party, People's Republic of China, claim, right, again, the atheist government, that they are the body who have the authority and the legitimacy to recognize and to authorize, right, Tibetan Buddhist reincarnations. And it might sound silly, it might sound ridiculous, and yet this is absolute reality. As Martin shared, right, this is the legal strategy that China takes to say we are the ones who are able to do this. Article 5 in detail, I will keep going. The CTA, of course, immediately repudiated this and said this is not so, right? You do not have the authority. And yet that is what an empire does. It claims the authority. It states it to the world. It tells the world, well, yes, the Dalai Lama lives in India. We are the ones who are the rulers of Tibet. This is happening within Tibet. We are in charge. Okay? And let's be honest. Most countries have not stood up to China. Right? So this is why providing historically accurate scholarship really matters. It matters for activists to do their work well, right? So that activist arguments can be built on a bed of accurate and historically factual scholarship. This is not over, though, right? This was in September. Right, so the Reincarnation of Living Buddhists seminar took place in Lanzhou, right? So doubling down in anticipation of what's coming, working, again, the Chinese government to further claim and to do so now under the aegis of Xi Jinping thought, right? So now it's not just Mao, right, but a whole new leadership trying to put their imprint and their claim, right, to Tibet. Again, the Tibetan government responds, and here the Kashag, like strongly responding, saying it is only, right, the Dalai Lama who will be able to make this claim. Now let's go back a little bit in time, 1995. Oh, right, into a story that you all know. Right, so Panchen Lama passes away. There is Tibetans from outside Tibet, Tibetans from inside Tibet working together to find the next Panchen Lama. However, before the Dalai Lama is able to announce this, the Chinese government announces that they're going to use the golden urn system to find the next Panchen Lama. Immediately, kind of within days, the Dalai Lama makes his announcement, May 14th, 1995. 3 days later, right, the Panchen Lama is kidnapped. This coming May will be 30 years, right? So as you know, still gone, still kidnapped, he and his entire family, right? And of course, we have all of this. I think this is a UK group. Lots, right, to this day, continuing, right, campaigns to find him, but still 30 years. Like that's a lot. There he is. I was just outside of Darsendo in the summer of 2005 when he came through in his convoy. And all of the traffic on the road was stopped. So we had to get out of our car. We stood on the side of the road for 3 hours before his convoy came through. And when he came by, I was standing next to an old Tibetan woman. Those are the best kind of people to be standing next to when something like this happens. Because she put her finger up and she turned to me and just said, Suma, right? This is the fake Panchen Lama going by. And that sense, what do we do? And this poor man, in some ways. We now have happening at the same time, it's no longer Tibet, right? Or Pur, right? It's Xizang. We have the changing of maps. We have diplomatic documents no longer using Tibet. Oh, sorry, this photo didn't fully come through. We have our colleagues, comrades, maybe even some of you know this man, in Paris, right, protesting this in the way that museums in Paris are no longer using the word Tibet under influence from the Chinese government, but are using just Xizang, right? This is happening simultaneously. I am almost done. The elevation now of Chinese leaders to a new sort of pantheon, a communist pantheon, right? And here in the frame of a tanka, right, with katas surrounding. We have the colonial boarding school system, right? We have all of this going on, again, simultaneously, trying to distract, trying to make it so that so much is happening, like focus can't be where it needs to be. And of course, it needs to be on every single one of these. All right? So colonialism and empire, you know, in China, in Nepal here, in India, on the border, right? Trying to stop the next reincarnation, right, from taking place in the Tibetan way, kind of with Tibetan agency and with Tibetan practices. So, thank you.
Thank you, Carole, for, again, amazing. As you can see, we didn't plan who's going to speak what, but there's so much of synergies here. So